Cheers.
Cheers. So nice to see you.
Yeah. Dear Alex, you are a mandolinist, you are a conductor, you are a musicologist, and recently you published a big book on history. This book is free of charge. How is it? How is it possible?
Well, the reason why I publish it free of charge is that I want that there is no reason for mandolinists not to know it because of money things. You know, they can afford it now because you can download it free from my website.
Yeah.
And also from other places, like for instance the Mozarteum in Salzburg. They have taken it on in their online library. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's really fantastic. Of course, I had to ask permission for the photos of the letter I found in which Gervasio was mentioned to be a friend of Mozart's wife, Leopold Mozart's wife. So, and he's in this letter, so it's a fantastic find, of course. And it gives something about the circle in which Gervasio lived, of course. That's the thing which was important for me. But apart from that, it's nice to have it published for free because everybody can get it. Because I have more permission to publish certain photos, which otherwise would have cost a fortune. Normally a photo to publish it and to get the rights for it to publish it costs around €100, something like that. And if you see how many photos I have done in my book, it's incredible. Yeah. But if you say that it's a non-commercial book, they allow you sometimes to have it for free or for less money than normal. And this is fantastic. So you avoid problems in the future. And this is an extra reason for me. And that's about, maybe there are some more reasons, but those are the two main reasons. I want it available for everybody. There's so much nonsense published about the mandolin in those centuries and in the centuries that came after Gervasio and the 19th century, that it's nice that now there is a book with all the sources mentioned and shown. All the paper and the newspaper articles or whatever things I talk about, they are mentioned and you can see them. So nobody can go around them. Yeah. It's there, it's true.
Yeah,
so that's
what I appreciated very highly was that you translated also all the Netherlandic citations, the French citations, the old British citations,
exactly.
etc., which helps to understand.
Yes, absolutely. This is necessary. Sometimes it's hard to read all those types of letters. Old Dutch is difficult, it's almost Gothic, you know. So, but on the other hand, I find it necessary to have that also. So if somebody wants to quote what I have said, it is more easy than to have it translated from the other thing. So I give the actual text, and then I give the translation. And where possible, and I think in 90% of the cases it is possible, there is the original source, the original newspaper.
By the way, I heard by some rumors that you are preparing some more books.
Yes.
Which ones are in the tube?
Yeah, well, there are several. There is one which I would like to do very much as the first one, and that is the book about Pietro Vimercati. And about what his legacy was. There is, I've done a lot of research. I've seen that he had about 6 or 7 journeys through Europe, into Russia and Finland and Sweden, England, everywhere. But it is almost not known. My great friend Carlo Alonso, he is also doing this research, and we share a lot of our research with each other. It's very fantastic. Yes, it's a good friendship, and well, you've seen our concert together with him. So also on some other branches of the big Alex Timmerman tree. But yes, playing with him is fantastic, but doing research with him and sharing what we find is absolutely fantastic. And that is what is is needed. He just published something about Gervasio in general, where he was at certain times, all through the times, like from 1807 up to Pietro Vimercati's death in 1850, and where he was almost through every year.
Yeah.
We have found many articles in newspapers everywhere, from every country. So there will be a book about that too, for me in English.
Vimercati.
About Vimercati.
And 2 more others.
Yeah, there are even more.
Three
There are even more.
others. Yeah.
I am also busy with the Colla Brothers. I haven't told you about that, but they were playing in Europe and performing in Europe, first of course in Italy, and they were playing on the guitar, the Baroque guitar, so to speak. I don't like the word Baroque guitar, but early guitar, and the Colascionscino.
Yeah.
And the Colascionscino is very important because we have the idea that from the Colascionscino, the mandolino cremonese or mandolino Brescia, as Bortolazzi called them in his tutor in 1804, not 5 but 4. It's always mentioned 5, but in fact it was advertised already in 1804. So I think it should be that. But so we think that the Colascionscino was as a kind of presence when they were on stage. Then they took under the coat, they took away this little mandolin. But the Colascionscino has 3 single gut strings. And the mandolino, the Brescian or Cremonese mandolino, they came from that town, they had 4 strings. So the ambitus, the tone range was more or less the same. So they could play on this instrument. And the public would have been outraged, what's this? Look at that. So it must have been something very much. And
those 2 brothers were even in Stuttgart.
Yes, in Stuttgart, but also in Stockholm, and it's fantastic. So there will be at least a publication about those 2. It's very interesting, and it's important for the mandolin also.
And now we come to some horrible news.
No, for me as a guitarist, it is very interesting also. There will be a book of my great friend Robby Faverey, and he's a guitarist, a really foremost guitarist of Holland, but he came from Suriname. And it's strange, but he went as a young kid, he went to Holland to be at the primary school, but he got back to Suriname, got involved with the guitar. His father was the one who promoted the guitar in Suriname as the first. So, and knowing Robby very a long time already, we had dinner here at my house and we had fun, and then we got the idea there should be something written down, a book. This will be a real book, a physical book. And so about the history of the guitar in Suriname, because Robby's father, Anton Faverey, he was a painter and a drawer, very good, but he taught, mainly a teacher. But in his free time, he developed himself as a fantastic guitarist with performances in chamber music series in Paramaribo. And he also was for the Suriname radio. So when Robby came from the first time back to Suriname from the Holland, he got so involved. He was playing the violin, but didn't do it really for a long time. Stopped. A violin, yes. Okay. That was before the first time he came to Holland, and then he went back, and then he got involved with his father's instrument, the guitar. And his father was very keen in what was happening in Europe. He had contact with all the great Fritz Berg. I've got letters from Fritz Berg addressed to Anton Faverey in Paramaribo. And this has to do with the Münchener Gitarrenverein, the first international Gitarrenverein. And with all the big German names. He had correspondent. He corresponded with them. And then with France, with publishers, and they sent music to him. So he was very broad-minded, and he ordered already in 1931, before Segovia really was involved with Hauser, he ordered already a Hauser, because he thought, this is the instrument I want to have. I want to have a good classical guitar. And of course, then the war came, and he couldn't get any gut strings anymore. So he had to study another instrument, and he did. He succeeded very well in playing the violoncello and participated in chamber music concerts. But after the war, strings were available again, and he turned again to the guitar. And then we come in the 1960s and so on. And Robby is already a young man in near his 20s, and he first studied in Brazil, and then he came to Holland with a grant to study. And that is a little bit the story of this book. And Robby not really went back to Suriname to live. He stayed in Holland. And I think he made a big name here in Holland, playing as one of the first the music by the Cuban composer Leo Brouwer, and a very close friendship in between, which I am also part of. I met Leo Brouwer in Amsterdam, and there's always been a nice relation between Robby, me, Leo Brouwer, and Robby's record label director, Siewert Verster, who played a big role. So that is writing about guitars, because more than half is about Hauser guitars.
Yeah, but you also have in preparation another book of guitars.
Yes, that will be the last guitar made by Antonio de Torres. The last guitar he made in 18, I must say.
So it's specialized on
92.
one instrument.
This is one instrument, and this instrument belonged to my teacher, Pieter van der Staak. And via him, I got this instrument and to know this instrument. And I traced the whole way it was back to 1892. The whole journey it made, who owned it, and who played it, and where it was at certain times, and so on. So this is a very interesting thing. It goes through World War II, of course, coming probably from Berlin to Paris, or it was bought in Paris. Emilio Pujol plays a role in this. Well, it's too much to tell.
Okay,
Really.
but
And then there is another book about mandolins, will be something good for you.
Yeah.
Because you like the mandolin best. And that is about my thoughts about the very, very early ancient developments, how it came to be the mandola or mandolino.
Yeah.
So that's before the Neapolitan mandolin, and even before the mandolino, which I like to call mandolino, because it overshadows the Baroque, it also Renaissance, and it is also after the Baroque still appreciated. Vimercati, Pietro Vimercati is such an example. He played on this mandolino. In the northern Italy, it was called mandola. Still the old name, mandola. But in Vimercati's time, it was developed with these 6 strings. And this. And Vimercati played with wooden plectrum of the cherry tree, which you should do when you play this instrument.
Yeah, this is an interesting point which you mentioned now, the development of the plectrum.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the story of the plectrums?
Yes, well, this instrument, here you see the wooden plectrum, the long plectrums.
This is a long wooden.
The long wooden plectrum from the bark, just beneath the bark, so not the bark because that's very crumbly, but just beneath the bark you have the flexible and soft wood which hardens when you cut it and dry it. And if you then do with olive oil, it gets this elastic thing and it doesn't break, it stays as it is. So
for which type of strings did you use?
Yes,
things?
that is the good question. Because first of all, this was played like the lute. I don't like to think that this was a lute or that it belonged to the lute family. It was not so. It was a mandolin family, the mandolino. And this was a branch in music instruments which stood on its own. So the lute was by its own, the guitar was by its own, and the mandolin was by its own. So this is the ancestor of all mandolins, and that's why I call it just simply mandolino, like you find on the scores. It's a sonata per il mandolino.
See.
So that's why.
For
And
example, in Scarlatti.
yes, not Colascionscino, because then
No, Scarlatti.
oh yeah, Scarlatti,
Yeah.
exactly. Sorry, yes,
Yeah.
that's fine. Of course, for all the instruments that came later, the mandolins, they were all called mandolino. So it's difficult for Italians to. Of course, that's true. But it's the same for guitar. That's a guitar. But then you get all the divisions up to now with country and western guitars and whatever.
Yeah.
But it's no problem for me.
Yeah.
Because if you take the right names, which were used at the time, you can just say mandolino Brescia, mandolino Cremonese, mandolino Lombardo, mandolino Napolitano.
That's very clear.
You know, and there's no problem. Why not? I am Timmerman, Alex, not my brother, Max. You see? So if you want to know more about us, you have to address to Max or to Alex. You see, this is not the problem for me. But it's, for some people it is, okay. But, you know, I did this poster with all the mandolin things and so on, and I kept to the Italian browns. So I don't include other Gibsons or whatever, but I did that as a lead, of course. But this was played with the fingers. And that is something, it was common for the lute. We had a soprano lute, but the soprano lute was a completely different instrument with 6 or 7 strings. At the time, this one only had 4 or 5. So its own development, yes, and with its own intervals in quarters, is done by this instrument by itself. The soprano lute was already in 1650 there. And had its own tuning and its own development in the number of strings. You see, so this one had only 4 doubles, and the lute had already 6 or 7. So, you see.
Nowadays, many people use the term soprano lute for the.
It's wrong. It's wrong. It's just wrong, and they keep telling it, and they keep saying it, and it's just wrong.
I don't understand.
But okay. What's in a name? Was it Shakespeare? But you see, what I like is that it was first played with the fingers. Yes, and even with nails, perhaps. Yes, but that is a preference. But and that is around 1760, 1770. The early tutors came, yes, by Gervasio, of course, and by Fucchetti and so on. And they mentioned that for their new developed instrument, the Neapolitan mandolin, they didn't call it like that, it was the mandolin a quattro cordi, or double. It was explained in the tutor that it was not 4, but it was actually pairs, 4 pairs, or 8 strings, 4 pairs. But I have discovered in the newspapers in Holland, for instance, that certain mandolinists in 1717 came and they played on the mandolin from Naples. So that is this one.
And you see, already had the.
This is with metal strings, while this is gut strings. And this one here, the old one, the mandolino, was tuned in quarters, you see, and this one is tuned in fifths like the violin, and it has its metal strings. And for a certain time, small period, the first string was also gut, because they couldn't make such thin copper, yellow copper strings. But we think, and I think, that this has only been for maybe 15 years or so. So from 1745, when this was developed in Rome and Naples, it could have had this one chanterelle, high string, double string, with gut.
With this one, you played with the fingers, but you showed us this. Plectrum.
Now we come to the question, to your question, and I will tell you that this is an interesting question because the method, like Fucchetti, they explained that for gut-strung mandolins, the wood of the cherry tree was ideal for plectra, and you should play that with this. And there's a reason for that, because the wood is softer and thicker, and therefore strong enough to hit the strings, but not cut through it.
Yeah.
If you play gut strings with your nails,
Yeah.
after a week or so, or 2 weeks, it goes out of tune because you have damaged the strings with your nails. So if you do it with wood, it's not happening.
It's strange because I would have imagined that if I would have used feathers, this would be much softer for this type of mandolin, but it's not.
It's not. It is too sharp.
Yeah.
You see, it's too sharp. So, and they wanted a voluminous sound of this instrument. And with wood, you get a more warmer, but also thicker, longer reaching sound, longer projection. And this instrument, which has a much deeper sound box, yes, you got more overtones, and the sound needs a different approach. You must think about sound and in a different way. This is more, it's not projecting like this. This is like shooting, like that, you know. While this is more inner. Inside the box, there is a development which creates the tone and is enough, you know, like that. But it's not harder or louder. I've spoken to people who were amazed by the sound when I played this. I have some videos put on long ago on the YouTube, and I play it with the fingers, and they couldn't believe their ears, you know. But this is a different quality of sound, and therefore you have the feathers. I just recently made a video to show how you make them, because I also, and it's in that video, you see a woman playing, and see exactly how it was described by Fouquetti, how to hold it between the thumb and the forefinger.
So we have real historic
yes, of course.
resources about the feathers and the plectrums and the wooden plectrums.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this does not cut the metal, the feather, you know, but it gives it sound like that. So you have to have the hollow part against your thumb, and then you have it like this. And we do the fingers a little bit outwards, because if it goes inside, what it does sometimes, like you play, you know, every plectrum has that. But you can do like this, and you can correct it. If your hand is free and not closed like this, if your hand is closed like this, you cannot correct anything, and you will end up playing like this, you know. But this is what it is. It is experience based on facts. Facts you find in the tutors. If you read the French tutors, they were all published in Paris and Lyon. But if you read that, you can find out more, and you can be guided how it was done at that time. You see, and that is the purpose of why I am writing. I am curious, and I want to know it. And if I don't get answers, I must find them. And then there are these tutors. Read them, translate them. Today we have this telephones. You put your thing and it makes a photo, and it says, do you want it translated? Which language? And you can translate it. It's incredible. It's fantastic.
But there came a time when you used plastic plectrums.
Yeah, but that is something from the time. You know, in our world, in which developments goes on and on and on, there are good developments. I mean, this here, and it's nice to say that this is long plectrum, and Ranieri plectrum is long as well. The same principle, because this plectrum was meant to be played like this. Yes. And if you hit the string there with a downstroke, the plectrum on that side goes down.
It's moving.
Yes, after it release, it goes up again in the good position to do the upstroke. And then it goes down if you do that. And so there is more to it than only long. It has a purpose. And Ranieri thought, I take that on, like he did with the head of the soloist model, the 5 B's, you know, that is absolutely the 5 B's. The 5 B's has this beautiful hammerhead, as I call it. Yes, so that's it, you know, and that is what Amberger developed, and there you can see that he was also involved in history. He knew what was done before him. And so did Ranieri, and Ranieri thought, okay, you have the feather, but then we have only one point. I make it long, and he made it longer than 4 or 5 centimeters. He made it even 6.5 centimeters. And he did 2 points. So when one was worn out, he could turn it and he could play on.
Yeah.
Yes, but sometimes it happens. Yeah. Sometimes it's a little bit damaged on one side or whatever, and you hear it. You probably won't hear it. I won't hear it. But he knows. It doesn't play as smooth as ever, so he would turn it.
Yeah.
When he would start in the middle section of a sonata or whatever.
Amberger was before Ranieri. And
No, they were together. They knew each other.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they had correspondence.
Yeah. But the plectrum size was different.
Now Amberger had a little bit smaller. Yeah. But the principle...
Can you show us one?
Yeah, there is one here. Yes, that is smaller. And this one, you see, it's... I don't know if it's good for the camera, but... You see, it's about,
can see it. Yeah.
10 millimeter or so, whatever.
Yeah.
You see this. So that is a development. But those were made of tortoiseshell. Development means that it became forbidden to use tortoiseshell. So we had to do plastic.
Yeah.
And the Roman plectrum, like on this Classico by Calace, yes, this plectrum, that is a development you also see in the old tutors. Yeah. So it's not to say that you have to take these long ones. You could also take heart shape. In fact, Fouquetti says something like that.
Those in original were also tortoiseshell?
Yes, of course. This is tortoiseshell. Yeah. They were all tortoiseshell. That was, you know, the cherry tree for this type. Yes, the wooden plectrum for this type. Then the feathers. Yeah. For the mandolino napolitano, this type with the metal strings, you have this plectrum.
For example, Vernaccia or?
Yeah, Finaccia, Fabricatore, Filano, all those makers from Napoli. But also Ferrari from the Roma, and Rosa and all those names. But it should be the mandolin tuned in fifth. Early Neapolitan, early Roman. And the Neapolitan are most famous, of course, the Finaccias. And then it developed to longer plectra because the Romans were very much first. Of course, we had Finaccia and Gaetano Finaccia and some others who prolonged making mandolins, but the Romans were also very keen on developing instruments. You know, with a curved fretboard. It was not only Amberger, it was Maldura, and there were many makers in Rome as well. But the Neapolitan, they had this small plectrum, the heart-shaped plectrum, and the Romans prolonged the long plectrum. In fact, the one with the longest history, as I just showed you. This is what it is. And yes, Ranieri, of course, was a fantastic player with compositions and so on he composed. And he was also, involved with history.
Then come to your book, because this is very, very important.
Gervasio book, yes.
It's dealing with Gervasio and with the printers, or I may not tell them editioners or editors.
That's very good. Yeah, good that you remember. But yes, you know, the name publisher was not available there. They never thought of them being publisher. Of course they were. And they worked together. But you must see it like this. There was a guild. And in this guild of haircutters or instrument makers or all kinds of guilds, silversmiths, there was a guild for people who were involved with paper. Yeah, so you had printers, you had engravers, you had bookbinders, and you had sellers, booksellers. That was it. So the name publisher did not exist.
Yeah.
I am reluctant to go on with publisher.
Yeah.
Of course they were, but I prefer to keep it sellers,
Yeah.
bookseller.
Yeah.
And that's it, that's what it was. But in the cases of the Gervasio, it was not known, for instance, for this Opus 5 with the duets, who published it, who sold them, who was the one who made it happen. Yes, and yeah, the book is about fantastic research by Paul Sparks about the mandolin in England,
Yeah.
from which I borrowed, of course, with his permission. And it is like this that Gervasio went to Paris in the late 1760s. His first opus number was printed there. Then he went to England. And he advertised himself as the one who taught the mandolin and singing to the princesses of France. Marie Antoinette had 4 children and 2 daughters were his students of the mandolin and singing. So he was a figure who was seen at the court. Yes,
So
at the
in
French
Britain,
court.
he could use his
Of course.
experience from France
Yes.
and publishing himself or advertising
himself as a prominent figure at royal houses.
Yeah.
And that's what he did, of course. And so I followed this line, and I found some more appearances of him in Britain, and that he had certain acquaintances with him. And then when he stayed a long period in London around, he went to Holland. And that is something not many people know. And so I tried to figure out where he was in Holland. And the first thing I thought that a friend in England had settled in Utrecht. And he went to Utrecht. And he had his first concert in Utrecht with his wife. She was a singer. So you see how Italians do is. It was an Italian friend who had chosen to live in the Netherlands. And Gervasio came and perhaps stayed there, had his first concerts there, and then eventually settling in Holland and stayed there for 2.5 years or so.
And whom was he teaching?
Yeah, that is the big question.
Because he needs money. He's got to live.
Yes, but you know, if you are high up in the regions of important, famous, or well known, then you get chances. And very soon he appeared with notable musicians from Holland. Also some Italians who had already settled here, like Ricci and so on. You know, they were already here and publishing music and so on. And the nice thing is that I found out that he gave those concerts, and that it was in Rotterdam, in Leiden, in The Hague, in Amsterdam, Utrecht, as I mentioned. No, not at low. This is the difficult thing to explain, because Het Loo is in Apeldoorn. It's a kind of summer residence for the royal family, or the stadtholder family. And because of the uprising in 1795, a lot of things have vanished. You know, the Loo has recently, not so long, some years ago, has been reconstructed and refurbished, fantastic, and with a fantastic museum. But they digged in the garden and they found holes, and in those holes they found the rudiments of wood burned. And this Loo palace was plundered by the Batavians. And they everything they took, and what they didn't like or couldn't sell or whatever, they put in those, they digged out those holes and they put fires. Yes, but happy fires, that they were liberated from the stadtholder and so on. Of course, they fell into a difficult time with the French occupying the Dutch. And in the government there were French, notable people.
So we do not know enough about the time of Het Loo.
No, because they burned the furniture, they burned the books, they burned the letters, they burned everything. And music, nobody could read music, so why should you have it? You cannot sell it, so they burned, they made paper. So a lot of these things have gone, not only in Het Loo, the summer residence, but also in The Hague.
Yeah.
Yes, they plundered everything, they took away everything. So we don't have the mandolin, we don't have the music for mandolin, except that what I found.
What the
And this is
publishers.
yeah.
No, I don't dare to say this
No,
anymore.
but this is the thing. The thing, yes, we can say publishers. We have explained that, but the thing is that we know that in the royal houses in Europe, the mandolin was very, very, very fashionable. Every woman, every girl, got music lessons, and most of them were so happy with mandolin. And it was also guitar and mandolin was much more appreciated to be played by a young girl, than a violoncello between her legs, and doing like that, or like this, or it was not so. Oh, that came later, in the 19th century, that women were playing clarinet and so on, but not in those times. But exception was mandolin and sitar, later the sitar.
This is a type of English guitar.
Yeah, exactly. And this was very fashionable in France, but then we are speaking of around 1800, like that. Yeah. So the mandolin was very fashionable, and then we get suddenly Gervasio, who is publishing a tutor for women. Yeah, so not for male, man, no, for female, especially for female.
And this has been printed in Vienna?
No, in Paris. And I will show you. This is such a page. I'll see what I can see. Yeah, my eyes are not so good. Yeah, I should do like this. 2 pages of the tutor. Yeah. And the last pages of this. And I have somewhere here, I have a front page of the method. And if you look well at it, and if I can keep it a little still, there says we can read instrument fait pour les dames. So made for the ladies.
Yeah.
And this is very, very interesting.
So Gervasio was a feminist.
Yeah, an early one. But you see, it was a kind of living for him, of course. So it was not only the royal family, 2 or 3 women. No, it was the whole circle around them, the nobility of Paris, and Versailles and so on. So there was this method.
And also here in the Netherlands, it was also the nobility or the rich people or the tradesmen?
Nah, yeah, I like to say and I like to think that, but it is a different story. You see, we had contacts as we are, we trade. So we trade with Habsburg and with Prussia and with England and far beyond that. So our stadtholder, Willem V, when very young.
Stadtholder means
like
king.
A king.
King.
Yes, you can tell.
Because it's misunderstandable,
No,
at least in Germany.
It is the highest person in Holland. You can compare it with the king.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And so he had to be married at a certain time. And they found him a girl, and that was Friederike Sophia Wilhelmina from Prussia.
Yeah.
And she was a niece from Frederick the Great, who reigned.
Yeah.
Now, and they found her, and they got married at a very early age, about 16 or 15 years old.
Were they happy with each other?
Well, I think so. They got children, and she was very feminist. Yeah. She was the one with the pants on, as we say in Holland. And he was a little bit undecisible. He was not so strong. So she was the lady. But they had children, and I think they were happy. But of course, she was raised up as a woman, as a princess, and also educated as that. And that was very good. She spoke different languages, several, and she was intellectual for politics and so on. And she was musically educated. And one of her talents was playing the mandolin and singing. And who happens to be a teacher of the mandolin and a teacher of singing? That was Giovanni Battista Gervasio. So when he came in 1775 to Holland, everything was nice in Holland. You know, the royalty and the stadtholder king was accepted, and she was accepted, and that was fine. But the revolution in France and the revolution everywhere and the unrest in Europe with the French, you know, and the English and so on, and the Prussians, of course. It came a little bit later, so let's say 70, 50, something like that. The unrest came and more, and sometimes they had to flee, and then they came back, and this was the case in Holland. But when Gervasio stayed here, there was something nice. It was very peaceful, everything. He had his concerts, and he probably taught her, because we have this book, and that triggered me, because I wanted to see which princess was meant, what he had on his title of the book.
Principessa ereditaria di tutte le Prussie.
Yeah, and this is very strange, because she's not named.
Yeah.
Who is the hereditaria principessa?
So you wanted to know the name
Yes, of course.
This principessa.
Yes. This was the big problem, which always has been misunderstood.
Yeah.
Yes, there are, and it's not so easy, because principessa, princess, that's okay. But then hereditaria, for a woman, it's crazy. It was not done. But Gervasio did. So in fact, he was, so to speak, enlightened with the thoughts of Rousseau, and you know, who was acquainted with Frederick the Great. So the philosophy and the more prominent people who were more progressive in politics, they were around. And maybe Gervasio was also a little bit more progressive than most people. So he put in the hereditaria. And that was for me,
that she was
the crown prince.
Yeah, she was inheriting the power.
Yes, if she was the only one in that generation after Frederick the Great. But she had a brother. And eventually, he was ook hereditaria. And so he got it. After Frederick the Great died, he became it. And she did not. But that was not the case in this time, because Frederick the Great was still alive in 1775. And this was published in 1775, I discovered. So that is one thing, the hereditaria. I knew I had to look for a very important princess, not just a princess. There were many Prussian princes. Germany was divided in several counties with Prussia, with each having their kings. So this was not to the taste of Frederick the Great, who more or less declared himself the king of all Prussia, not one or two, no, of all Prussia. And that is the case. She is mentioned, Principessa Hereditaria di tutti le Prussi. Of all the Prussians, or you can say of all Prussia. That means that she was the important one at that time. After Frederick the Great declared him, I don't know exactly what, at this moment, I think it was 1773, that he was declaring himself to be the only king of Prussia. Now this is what, here you see that I have to look for it after, if it's 1773, but I have to look it after Frederick the Great declared himself the only king of Prussia. Not before.
So she was a really important person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, I don't know if I have the page of that, because this cover comes from a copy which can be found in the library of Trieste in Italy. Yes. And then I found online a publication which was just there. just a few months before I saw it, it was published there. And that was from the library in Moscow, the State Library in Moscow. It was the same book. Only this book was beautiful. It was bound in leather with golden letters and with a beautiful crown and with initials.
Like
Initials we don't know, but they were inside the leaves and the crown on top of it. And on the sides of each top there were, I don't know what the name is that, but 2 little angels. And this is something we see a lot in Holland.
It's a little bit like Scarlatti, which was given to the Library of Venezia.
Yeah, for instance, yes, something like that. But I also have tried to find out how this book, this beautiful book, one of a kind, because there were not many like that. It was so
it
special.
must have been a present.
The one in Trieste like this was like this, you know, just paper, nothing. But this one was leather bound, gold plated, and it had some pages more. And those pages, that was very important for me. Those pages, I saw they had a watermark, and not 1 but 2. And from these watermarks, I could find my way back to Holland, to the Zaanstreek, just above Amsterdam, where they make paper. And they were famous. I can give you the example, and they do it in the book also, that the regulations, the statutes of America, you know, what is it called? I don't know now.
Liberty.
Yeah, exactly. They were printed on the paper by this firm in Holland. Yes, in the Zaanstreek.
So the idea that it was printed in Vienna was totally
Gone.
wrong.
Yes, and in England, some
Also
scholars.
wrong.
Yes, some scholars say,
Paris.
oh, it is London, it is
Paris.
Paris, and
Also wrong.
it can be Vienna.
Yeah.
And some come up with things, but don't research it well. And this is something, I'm sorry to say, but I was brought up as an engraver, so I know what engraving means, but my eye for detail is also on what do you do when you are an engraver. So not only the watermarks brought me to Holland, to the Netherlands, where the book was engraved, or where the paper was used to print the music, but also the page numbers. And especially you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 9, and then 0. Yes, that's all you need for numbers.
Yeah.
Then I discovered, and I think I have something here. I discovered the number 2 as most outstanding. They all differ, but the number 2 was
extraordinary.
Yes, and here you can see. So here you see a 2-2, page 2-2. Yeah, 22, and that is just another printer. Yes, and here you see the printer from The Hague. Yes, and you see a very different 2.
Yeah, it looks totally different.
Yes, it has more like this, and I checked everything I could, all the music, and I found out that the Italians in Holland had a preference for this too, because not only Gervasio used it, but this is how I am. I buy original music from that period, and this is Symphony Concertantes by Ricci, and he lived at the same time as Gervasio in Holland. They probably knew each other, and I think he introduced Gervasio, or he could have introduced Gervasio to Turpin and his other they were 2, Turpin, and they had one printing shop. And you see here, you see in the part for the horns, you see exactly the same number 2. You see, so then I knew that it was something special for this engravers, and that you could, when you wanted to have your music print, and Ricci printed it on his own cost. He paid it himself.
Yeah.
It was not that the publisher or the seller did it. That was also sometimes the case. But here you see that he did it himself. And we know this also from sources, from other sources. So he paid for the music himself. And then he could choose which letter type he would have. And of course, if you are a printer and an engraver, you have 10, 20 kinds of letters.
Of number twos.
Yes, of number twos, but they belong, like now we have, if you go behind your computer, you can choose from 100 different types of letters. So that was the same then, a little bit less perhaps, but it was the same. And the customer could choose. And my idea, and I know this, the Italians, I can prove, the Italians like this number two. And then if you go back to this, to Gervasio, and you see the same number two, it makes sense. Then you go back to The Hague. Yes. And this was important for me, that I thought, okay, here is a lead, you know, there's something special.
There is a center of
There's a center,
printing and publishing.
Yes, and they did fantastic, and they also did military printings and all kinds of things. So they were really, but they stood out for their music printings. There were a lot of Dutch composers, and so they had the music printed by them. But very interesting, Ricci, who eventually got back to Italy, and then it stopped, of course. Then Marcor, this was the seller in Amsterdam, went on with selling music. And he liked this number two. In practically all, I won't say all, but practically all, so let's say 95% of his publications, and that, you know,
was with this number two.
Always.
Yeah. In brackets, you were engraver. What kind of job is it? What does it mean to be engraver?
Engraver, that is that you are a goldsmith.
Yeah.
Yes, you were raised as a goldsmith.
Yeah.
But I had a subject in which I wanted to graduate, and that was an engraver. And that is, you engrave heraldic weapons into silver plates, you know, where they put fruit or cheese or whatever. But then the royalty has their own weapon, family weapon, and I engrave it like that. It's
so
very
you
special.
were working for the...
Well, I not, because I was studying it in Schoonhoven. That's the only school for goldsmiths and engravers. But I wanted to become that.
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't finish it because music got too much of me, and I changed. Yeah. You know, after 1.5 years, I thought I have to follow my heart.
But you know what you're talking about.
Yes,
when
and I still
speaking about these engravers.
Of course, and I have still the copper plates which I did. You know, you learn it in soft copper, and then you go to gold and silver, and you do the engrave. Yes, that's my profession.
Okay,
a little bit.
Brackets closed.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, no, not at all. But this is something which is so nice, because you look with different eyes and you come across certain things. And of course, in the second part of the book, because the book is of 2 parts, you suddenly see that the dedication is not to the Prussian hereditary princess anymore.
But to somebody else.
But somebody else. To the Count of Nijmberg.
Yeah, who is this?
Yes, and I have made a kind of philosophy about this. And I think it's not a real count. It was a nom de guerre. It was a name for somebody who does not want to be recognized, but who fought in the wars. And there were wars around 1805, and a very important one, in which the son of our Prussian princess, our later king, real king, Willem I, also fought with 20,000 soldiers on horses, cavalieros. So, but one of his most close allies, and also from the Prussians, was, I forgot the name, but was this Count of Nuremberg, but it's not his real name. But he got mortally killed near, no, not completely killed, but near Nuremberg. And that's why they gave him in the newspapers this name.
Naumberg.
Naumberg, yes.
Or
Naumberg.
Naumburg.
Yeah, now Naumberg is the Italian-Dutch variant if you translate it.
Yeah.
But if you go to the map in Germany,
Yeah.
you see Naumburg.
Burg.
Yes,
Yeah.
but they don't have a count. And I searched for everything in Holland to find a count with that name, and there is not one.
So it was an honorary name.
Yes, but also one that could not be recognized by the French, who had taken Holland with the Batavians. And that's why they could not use the name of the princess anymore, because they were chased away to England.
Yeah.
You know, they wanted to kill them.
Yeah.
But they were chased and
The
they fled.
Batavians wanted to kill.
Yes, the Dutch, the revolt, they wanted
Yeah.
to kill the stadtholder and and his wife,
Yeah.
but they fled to England,
Yeah.
where they had their family on the throne in England. So they escaped. But Marcor, the publisher of this,
the non-publisher,
he was from Germany
Yeah.
and very much a Prussian-minded guy. And that we know, if you read the book, you can read all about the printers. I included this, maybe too much to include it in a book for Gervasio, but I like it because it gives you the feeling what is happening in Holland in these years.
Yeah. Yeah, and also it means something because Gervasio has changed the name on the title, which means he had to live probably under new governance.
Yes, but I think Gervasio left Holland in 1777, something like that, or 6. And he left and he went to Mainz to give concerts and so on. And that is where he met Leopold Mozart's wife. And this is the letter in which she writes to Leopold and which Mozart also writes. But this is the envelope, which is later found because the Mozarteum had already the letter, but they did not the envelope. And it came because there was a goldsmith somewhere who collected these things. And in his legacy, they found this, and of course they bought it. Yeah. And in this envelope, there is a certain Senor Gervasio who plays the mandolin, who played the concert here, and she sings. So it had to be our Gervasio.
Yeah, and it was before he fled into the foreign country.
Yes, this happened before.
So it was in the early time of Mozart.
Yes, of course. So this letter was written in 77, and she says to Leopold Mozart, which you have met in Holland.
Yeah.
And we know that Mozart, the Mozart family, Nannerl and Mozart, Wolfgang, and his father were only one time in Mozart.
Yeah.
They stayed
in Holland.
In Holland, sorry.
Yeah.
And that, so we know that Gervasio was already before he went to Paris.
He was here.
He was in Holland already.
Yeah.
He must have been.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic find. If you find a letter like this,
Auguri, compliment.
yeah, you can live a year on just nothing. But you see, that is very nice, and I'm very fortunate with
Congratulations
this.
for this find.
And it is fantastic.
Really important.
Yes, and it means a lot because it also shows that Mozart was, that he was in the right circles. You see, because when they were in Holland, they performed for the royal and the notable people, and so there should have been Gervasio and his wife also. You see, so that is fantastic. But to come back to 1777, the Gervasios were traveling. Holland was fine, no uprising yet, and the Gervasios moved through Germany up to Poland. And as I tell in the book, they had a daughter in Holland. She died after 3 months, and they buried her in Rotterdam. And I've got this death certificate. I found that too, yes, in Rotterdam. So I know that she was buried there, and also in which church and so on. But nothing more. They had a daughter, okay, and she was named Katharina. And then they traveled in
Poland?
77 to Poland. And then I discovered that she had another child. But I didn't discover it at that moment. That was much later in my research. I discovered a certain Gervasio died in a place very near, now it's Paris, but in a place very near Paris. There was a woman named Catherine, like the same, Catherine.
Yeah.
And that she was born in Warsaw.
Yeah.
Exactly in the years that they were there.
Yeah.
So this was no coincidence anymore.
Yeah.
And in this death certificate, there was also Margaretha Prenseng, the name of the mother. So we suddenly have Gervasio, Giovanni Battista, and then the daughters, and we have the name of the wife.
And the name of the wife was different than
Yes,
Gervasio.
Margaretha, if I'm well, but Prenseng.
Yeah.
Strange name. I'm not really figured out what that could be, but maybe I pronounce it wrongly. But this was her name. But you see how a family grows then,
Yeah.
How you get, although we don't have a picture of him, how somebody gets a face.
Yeah.
Huh?
And he died in Paris, or near to Paris.
No, the daughter. That daughter died in I think 1859. At 80 years old, she died there.
Ah.
But Gervasio was a long time dead.
Yeah.
We think that he died in 1900 and
19?
oh, sorry,
18.
1800 and now I'm still wrong with all the dates, but I must say 1785. So
And where?
that is I must think where it is. I know I will come to
Or
that.
how do you come to the conclusion that he died in this year? So you must
No,
have had
this
some
is very good.
source.
Yes, the birth and the death date are very difficult to be sure of. We think 1725 birth for Gervasio, and we don't have his death found yet, but we think it is up to 1785 because he advertised himself as a teacher of singing and mandolin. Yes, in the paper, in the newspaper. I have written it down. It's in the south of France. It's not in Paris.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is
it will come.
Gives us an idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and that is also because he gave a concert in Italy. So we know that from Poland, they were in Warsaw, where, by the way, he was a member of Freemasons. Not only there in Warsaw, but also when he went to Berlin, because Margaretha Prenseng, his wife, was asked by Frederick the Great and also by the predecessor, the successor, to come and sing in the opera of Berlin. So I found that, and then, I know that they were in Berlin, and then they went down to Italy and they had a concert. I think it was in Trieste, and from there they went, I think, to Grenoble. Now I know. I think so. I think so. And there he advertised himself, not as the teacher of those French.
No, because this was not the time to advertise nobility.
And maybe because he was not so French orientated, maybe more Prussian. Because he also advertised him there in Grenoble as the teacher of the hereditary princess of all Prussia.
No.
So he left France.
Knows the story here, which is almost a criminal story, what you told us now.
Yes. Yeah. It's absolutely. That's what I say. Carlo Alonso said it fantastically to me. He said, "Yes, you give Gervasio his face. We now know more about him, and of course that feels very good. Then it feels that it has not been for nothing what you have been researching, but it has been liked and it has given a place in history, which our fantastic instrument needs. Of course, it's absolutely fantastic. Yes, this is out of curiosity, and out of beauty, love for the instrument."